Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another Judith Unhinged. This week, I'm talking you through the Dutch ban on fat bikes, the America's Next Top Model documentary, Bridgerton, Wuthering Heights, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the Lincoln Lawyer, Dexter, and we end with some earwax removals. Ooh. But I'm gonna talk you through my week as always. And I'm just giving my opinion and commentary. There are no facts or advice given. And we will start, as always, with the Dutch news of the week. And this week, while the world is crumbling into a million pieces, in the Netherlands, they are banning fat bikes. You might have questions like, what are fat bikes? Why are they being banned? And maybe, what is the Netherlands? I hope that's not your question. And why are Dutch politicians occupied with banning a bike at this moment in time? Aren't there any more serious things that they should be doing? Yes, of course, there are more serious things. But no, in the Netherlands, nothing ever happens. So this is the most important thing at this moment. I'm just kidding, of course. Fat bikes were invented in the 80s in the United States, in Alaska. They were basically bigger bikes, so they had wider tires so that they could traverse and pedal over ice and over snow, because it's always snowy in Alaska, right? And then they got really popular in Europe when they morphed into the e-fat bikes. So all the cities in Europe are filled with these very big, annoying bikes. In the Netherlands, we have more bikes than people. We don't have that many people, but we do have a lot of bikes. They get stolen all the time as well. But we do have a lot of bikes, and our infrastructure is set in such a way that there are biking lanes everywhere. So you can actually bike anywhere in the Netherlands easily and safely as well. And a lot of countries around the world are following our example of how we dealt with this infrastructurally. In cities as well, there are lots of parts, especially the city centers, where you can't actually get to with a car. So you have to bike there, or you have to walk there and park your car somewhere else. Sometimes there's public transport that goes into the city center, so you can park your car outside of the center and go into the city center. Which is perfectly normal for our country, those kinds of concepts. That might be strange if you're not from the Netherlands, but to us it's very normal. So what's happening with these fat bikes in a country where bikes are so integrated in the culture? I mean, I learned how to ride a bike. They often say before you can walk, well, something like that. I loved riding my bike when I was little. All the Dutch kids, all the Dutch adults have knees with scarring on them from riding your bike. At one point, I had this red racing bike, and of course, my knees, they were just gone at certain stages because that was wild. And most kids are, so all the kids can really bike really well at a really young age. They bike to school themselves, and that's just our culture. So what is happening with these fat bikes? First of all, they're very different. Like they're not like normal bikes. They're much broader. So not only their tires are much broader, but their frame, which is quite slim for a regular bike, is quite big as well. Then they can go very fast, right? They basically look like a scooter instead of a bike. And it's super, super popular amongst young people, amongst teenagers especially. You don't need a driver's license to drive them because they're bikes. You don't need to wear a helmet. Anyways, sorry to bring this to your attention, but anyone wearing a helmet in the Netherlands is probably German. I'm sorry to say, but it's true. There is no, there's not a Dutch person out there who wears a helmet when biking. Maybe now with the e-bikes that when they have an electric bicycle that they do, especially the older folks, that they do wear a helmet. But you can't. Also your kids. You can't. I'm sorry for all the kids that go to school wearing a helmet. You can't do that to your kid. You really cannot do that to your kid. I understand safety first, developing brains. You know, I'm fine. I did it without a helmet. We can do it. We just have slight brain injuries. We're just a little bit less smart than we're supposed to be. But these fat bikes, so they're bigger. They're like scooters. Teenagers ride them, and there are safety issues with them. So they do go very, very fast, and then the teenagers, they tune them so they make them even go faster. But then there are structural issues with it, that they have brake issues, so they can't brake, especially when going over a certain speed. Their brakes often fail. They have electrical issues, software issues. So there are lots of issues with that, and what they see is due to our culture of not wearing helmets when you bike, when you cycle. There is a huge uptake in brain injuries amongst teenagers because they are pedaling around. Well, they're not actually pedaling with these fat bikes. They're electric, so usually electric bikes you do have to pedal. The fat bikes are made for lazy people, I guess, like teenagers, who don't actually pedal, so they can go quite fast without any effort, basically, which does make them dangerous. What is interesting about this ban is that it's not about the danger. It's like Sundas, who's a Dutch comedian, she said on her podcast, if you buy your kid a fat bike, you don't love them. I think that is true, because what is happening with these fat bikes is that they're really annoying. So they take up a lot of space. The kids are just hanging around. We call them hangjongeren on these fat bikes, and, you know, just creating dangerous traffic situations. And they're just annoying. That's what it is. Because the ban, you know, if they were really concerned with the safety of the future generation of Dutch people, they would make sure that everyone who had to drive them needed a license and had to wear a helmet, because that's the sensible thing to do. No, you know what they're doing? In the busy areas in the cities, they're banning them. So you can't take your e-bike, your fat bike, e-fat bike, there anymore. That's just because they're annoyed. There's just old Dutch people who are annoyed with these bikes, who are saying, like, I don't want them here. They're ugly. They're annoying with teenagers. They're just annoyed with these fat bikes. That's what is happening. And I get it. I mean, they're like scooters. You don't want them running around everywhere. I understand. But I think they are making a huge mistake. Because if we're talking annoying bikes, let me open up a booklet for you and talk about bakfietsen. Bakfietsen are cargo bikes. So they're these huge bikes, usually electric, because which insane person does this without having an electric bike? This guy probably, but that's a different story. I didn't have a cargo bike. I had a twin bike at one point where it's elongated, and I had two seats for my kids so that I could bike them around on one bike. And it was a lot of work, I can tell you that. A cargo bike is a regular bike or an e-bike, and it has a huge thing in front of it where your kids can sit. So there's little seats in them. There's often covers on them, like a carriage, like a care, and you're the horse, the parent, because what else are you gonna do except do your take your kids everywhere, and you're a taxi service to them, right? Or just a servant in general. Like, mom, can you get me this, mom? Anyways, I think if you're banning fat bikes, you also have to ban bakfietsen. I think those cargo bikes are dangerous, just as dangerous as the fat bikes. You know the reason why they are banning the fat bikes but not the annoying bakfietsen? Because the bakfietsen are being used by parents, especially mothers, and they don't want to annoy the mothers, because of course, who does that? You will get the wrath of the moms on you. I'm not afraid. I'm a mom. They like me because I'm a mom, so I'm not afraid to say it. Bakfietsen are really a terror on the road. They're so big. So the reason, okay, so non-Dutch people don't know this. The reason they're so scary on the road is they're huge. So they're very wide. So a fat bike is nothing. A bakfiets is so wide, it takes over the entire biking lane. So that creates situations where other bikes and scooters and anything has to pass them, or you get like in a two-way road, cars can't really pass them because there's not enough space. It just creates very dangerous situations. There are these huge horrible things. If you're banning fat bikes, you have to ban bakfietsen. All bikes that are annoying should be treated equally. Do it. Do that. Listen to me. I'm right. You're wrong. And make some sense. This very serious topic. Okay. I'm glad we have that sorted out. Let's get into America's Next Top Model documentary. I was so rooting for this documentary to be not a fluff piece. You know, there are now a lot of documentaries coming out about shows that were on when I was little, and I love them. I loved the documentary on Jerry Springer. It was really interesting. It delved into the workings of the show. How did they create it? What should they take accountability for? What were some of the dangerous consequences of the show? It was really great. Watch it, the Jerry Springer documentary. It's fantastic. And then came The Biggest Loser, and I was like, just off that Jerry Springer documentary, I was like, yes, now they're gonna attack this, because that was, I didn't even watch it because at the time I thought, this is insane. Why are you making people puke while working out? That was an entire fluff piece. It was just about the emotional, let's call it consequences of being overweight. It was more about that than people in the show taking accountability, people actually talking about how the show worked, how they created their storylines, and what kind of manipulation was there. I really think like it's important for people who produce television to think about, how am I going to approach this? How am I going to create this in a responsible way? Not only about what will hit, but also how am I doing this and what are the consequences of my actions to the contestants, but then also to the people watching it, right? And then you have America's Next Top Model. I did watch that. I did really like the show. At a certain point, I stopped watching it. It was, in the documentary, they did show that it was more of a reality TV show where they followed the lives of the models. That wasn't it for me. I don't know if they did an adjusted version in the Netherlands, but I mostly saw them doing assignments and then failing terribly because they were like hanging upside down and doing all sorts of crazy things, or having spiders on their face and they didn't like it. Oh no, you made a bad picture? What? How could it ever be? But I thought this was a very much a fluff piece. Unfortunately, it wasn't set up like this. It was set up and marketed, at least in the trailers I saw. I didn't see any reviews or anything before because I don't do that. But in the trailers I saw, it was more marketed as a tell-all. We're really getting down to it. They're not. It's just a fluff piece. It's not a fluff piece to get into, to give them a boost in their careers. None of the creators of the show came out of that documentary looking good. But I will explain why it was a fluff piece. So they do go into some of the bad things that happened on that show. Like there was abuse, there was harassment, there was even sexual assault. There was just a lot of horrible, traumatic things that happened to those contestants, and they touch upon that. But the documentary especially focuses on the drama between the Jays and Tyra. Because, have you heard? They were fired. Oh no, what do we do? It is ridiculous. They really even I paused the show and called my husband in and told him, look at this. Look at how dramatic they make it. Because they were one of the Jays was talking about how they were fired. Oh no. And there was this music like boom, boom, boom. They were really building up an artificial tension. They were canned. They were fired. Guess what? It happens to everybody. You know what doesn't happen to everybody? Being abused on a game show. What is this? I mean, come on. This is crazy that the big thing on the documentary is them being fired and them arguing with Tyra about it and Tyra being fake to them on screen. Really? That entire show wasn't entirely fake? Are you kidding me? No, we were doing it to get rid of these stigmas in the fashion industry. No, you weren't. You were doing it to make money, and you made a lot of money out of it. You created a Chinese version. There was a Dutch version. There was a German version. There were versions all over the world. You had syndication. Your episodes were shown in other parts of. You got so much money out of this. Don't tell me it was about some moral standpoint. That is insane. It wasn't. And even for the documentary to suggest that it was, I don't know if they were legally obliged to do so, but it was clear from episode 1, and I did watch it from episode 1, that it wasn't about that at all, that it was about sensationalizing this and making those people jump through hoops. That's what it was about, making them feel emotion and manipulating them. That was clearly what it was about. Now, what they did in the Jerry Springer documentary that I loved was they really got into it. And they grabbed the people that were actually making the show. So not Jerry, not the people on screen. They were getting the people that were actually producing the show, and they were letting them talk and them tell us what it was all about. How did they do it? How did it work? Were they aware that they were doing bad things? And they did a tell-all, and they really got into it. On this America's Next Top Model show, they were only interviewing contestants and main pieces. So the presenters, the people that were on camera. Yes, they showcased, I think, 1 or 2 network executives. And Ken, I don't remember his full name, but who created the show with Tyra and the Jays. But they didn't really show anyone else who was working on the show back then. Apart from the contestants who weren't working, they were contestants, so they were also participants. Then on top of that, nobody took any sort of accountability for anything on that show, which is insane to me. I'm sure, I don't know the legalities of it. I don't know what would happen if um, if Tyra would say like, no, I do think that we made some mistakes, or if she would be then held accountable legally. I have no clue. But I thought that was a huge missed opportunity. It was a fluff piece, and they were just not lifting the veil on America's Next Top Model. And I really, really wanted to see that. I didn't want to see what I saw, which was the Jays being dramatic about their getting fired. And I'm sorry for Miss J's. What was it? Did she have a brain aneurysm? I don't know. And I hope they recover well and everything goes well. But it just wasn't it for me, unfortunately. What was it for me? What was exciting this week was Bridgerton. I watched the 4 episodes that are out now. It's really interesting. Like, what is it about Bridgerton that makes it interesting? I wonder what makes it interesting to you as well. Because to me, I don't get excited about the sexual scenes. You know, like it's a very steamy show, and it's spicy. And I think the first season was a little bit more explicit than what they are doing now. But I don't get excited about that. What interests me the most is the desire part. Like the chase, they're not touching. Oh, no, they are. No, they're not. Oh, they can't. And this season is full of that, right? Because it's forbidden love between Benedict and between Sophie, a nobleman and a maid. Oh no, what will happen? Oh no. It's really a show where you can like swoon and be enticed, and it's very romantic, which made me think about Wuthering Heights. I'm so sorry. So I went to Wuthering Heights with my husband. That was mistake 1. I thought this would be like back in the day in the O's, we went to Pride and Prejudice together, and we had a beautiful romantic night, and it was so much fun. So I thought Wuthering Heights, Pride and Prejudice, yes, we're on. This will be it, and it will be so much fun. And nobody told me it's like the BDSM version of Wuthering Heights. Maybe I should start watching reviews and looking up like what other people thought about movies before I see it, because it would have been lovely if I was warned beforehand about this. I wanted to swoon. I'm not into pain or humiliation. Like with Baby Girl, that doesn't excite me at all. The humiliation, the degradation. It's just not me. I'm not into that. If you're into that, I'm all for you. Have fun with Wuthering Heights. That's not what I liked about it. The actors were really nice. They did a good job. It was performed really well. I loved the aesthetics of it as well. The sets were great. I just wasn't prepared for that level of liberty with the original content. That brings me back to Bridgerton. And I do have issues with the show as well. I don't like that women are set up as these, they're almost always set up as objects of desire, right? And I have issues with that in that sense. But here the men are set up as objects of desire as well. So what are we talking? But the women are always in the mood. They always want sex. And I'm so, like, it's so insane to me, especially when it's a Shondaland production. It's made by women for women. And then they still portray these women as just these sexual desire beings. Well, that's not the case. You know what excites me? When you do the dishes. You know what gets me going? When I come home to a clean house. You know what really gets my panties in a twist? When you clean the air conditioning filters. But I didn't tell you to do so. Try that out at home with your partner and see how they respond, please, because that will work a lot better than, I don't even know what these men are doing in Bridgerton that get all these women so hot and bothered. I think it's just that they are not allowed to, right? And it's interesting if you look at Eloise, I believe like the spinster of the Bridgerton family is called that, right? She said, I'm going on the shelf, but now she is sort of having second thoughts, because if she becomes a spinster and doesn't get a husband, doesn't have kids, she's missing out on a lot. And I think that's a really real and fascinating storyline, because that is a reality we as women had to deal with for a long time, and luckily it has changed. If you decide, I don't want to have kids, I don't want to be a wife, then you still have value and you can do a lot of things as a woman these days. There's a long way to go, but we're not that dependent on that core structure. And then yet again, right, there's a lot of pressure on women to produce children still, to aim for that perfect partner, or to aim for that perfect family and pick a fence, which is still insane. And it all comes, if you look at Bridgerton, it all comes from that period of time where women were really, the goods, and a lot of the value in women was in that they could produce an heir. It's really, really interesting to see all that, and to see how far we've come, but how not far we've come at the same time. Going back a few centuries before that, we have A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which takes place in the Game of Thrones universe. It's a prequel to the main show, Game of Thrones. Is it now between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones? I'm so, I don't understand the timeline. Someone explained this to me, the timelines of Game of Thrones and the prequel and everything like that. I love Game of Thrones. I really, 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 really do. It's like evil. It caters to what I like, which is villains, and seeing them win. It is so much fun. And this is so cute. It had Duncan and Egg, the big guy and the little guy, teaming up together. Oh, and I found out, small spoiler, because it gets revealed at a certain point. Egg, the little boy who's Duncan's squire, is actually Aegon Targaryen. And he cut off his white hair to go incognito and to have this experience as a little boy, as a squire, instead of sticking with his family where he was in his very privileged life. I found that out by looking up the actor that played Egg on IMDb. Oh, I hate it when that happens. I wanted to find out on my own on the show, and it's not like they're treating us, the viewers, as if we're dumb. It's really nice how they treat us. Like with Duncan's whole story around his youth and how he came to be with this old guy, and he had a friend, and she dramatically dies, and then he falls in love with this actor who looks exactly like his friend from back in the day, which is really, really cute to see. and you kind of piece that connection together on your own as a viewer instead of them pushing it into your face. I love it when they view their viewers as smart people who can really understand how to put a story together instead of like I don't like it when they push things in my face. That's what she said, and she did. The Lincoln Lawyer is really exciting. I finally started the new season, season 4, in which Mickey is set up. Spoiler, well, it's not really a spoiler. It was already given in season 3. So he becomes the client. He becomes his own client who's in jail and everything that comes with that. And it's interesting. Mickey is often beat up. He's every time, I told this before, like, how can he survive these things? It's insane, right? The car rolls over 1,000,000 times and Mickey just walks it off while somebody else in the same car dies. Really, Mickey? Really? But they love to beat on him. And I wonder what it is with Mickey. Because I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of these male-led shows, usually. But I love these arrogant but emotional, sort of clever guys. Doesn't he have a lot of similarities with like Castle, Nathan Fillion's character on that show? I don't know. It's kind of a weakness. Like, Mickey is emotionally maybe fragile. Maybe I want to protect him and just out of the goodness of my heart make sure that he's okay or something like that. Because he's arrogant, but he's not obnoxious. I don't know what it is with him. What's that magic thing that makes us like Mickey? Because he's very annoying as well. And if he was just annoying, like when he's lawyering it up, right? And he gives that look like, and he doesn't look like that. And he does his thing. You don't like him, but other times you really like him. And maybe it's that emotional, emotional side of him that's vulnerable. And maybe the physical harm that becomes him is kind of a reflection of that vulnerability. And that's what we like about him. Maybe it's that. Maybe. I'm not sure. I will report back. Eventually, they do have to close out that show. And I hope they do it with a big haul, that they do like an Ocean's 11, because they're good at that, right? And that they do this big haul, one final big case with a big payout. And then Mickey retires and he spent all his time with his daughter. And Lorna and Cisco get to, I don't know, travel the world, and Izzy gets her dance career finally. Something like that. That would be fun, right? Anyways, we're deep into our rewatch of Dexter in season 3. Still in season 3. I've now introduced the kids to John Lithgow in Third Rock from the Sun, where he plays this crazy alien that's pretending to be a human. We saw this clip of them, like he kisses his lady crush, and then she hits him in the face, and then he hits her back, and then every time he kisses a lady, he hits them in the face. It was so funny. But I needed them, the kids, to have that frame of not just seeing him as the cool serial killer, but also as this goofy comedy actor. So they have that image next to it now. There's still so much nakedness of John in there. And I'm so happy that this is Rita's final season, because Rita is annoying. Really? Rita, come on, be stronger than this. He cheated on you. He lies to you constantly, and you discover his lies. Like this season, he has his apartment still. You know what she does? Oh, you want space? Oh, here, I will make this shed for you, and you can have your murder shed and put all your murder stuff in there. Not that she knows that he's murdered, but you get my point. Why? What is this woman doing? She's not thinking clearly. She's one of the most annoying characters in such a good TV show, but luckily we will get what we want. At least I will get what we want. Let's see how traumatized my kids are after that. We'll see. I'll report back. No, I won't. I won't tell what they thought. Okay, let's wrap this up and let's give you something nice. Well, let's see if you think it's nice. One of the things that I love the most to watch are pimple popping videos. Yes, I'm one of those people who love the disgusting videos where it gushes out or they have to really dig in, like the dermatologists, right? I don't want this amateur stuff, but like they really have to dig in and there's a huge mountain and they cut it open and all the stuff comes out. It's fantastic. I've recently noticed I've been deprived of a new thing: earwax removal. You have to watch this. So if you like the pimple popping at all, this will give you so much happiness. So search for earwax removal, then come back and thank me. And I say beforehand, you're welcome. I hope this put a smile on your face. Enjoy, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye, everyone.